You are sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, typing and deleting the same message for the 10th time. You want to confront someone who disrespected you. You want to speak the truth that has been lodged in your throat for weeks. You want to react the way a man should, but something paralyzes you. An inner voice whispers, "It's not the right time. It will cause unnecessary trouble. Better to let it go and keep the peace." And you put down the phone. Once again, you have surrendered. Not to them, to fear. The worst part is, you don't even realize you're being manipulated. You call it prudence, wisdom, emotional maturity. But Sartre has already revealed the brutal truth that no one wants to admit. You are being manipulated by your own cowardice. And it doesn't need to shout to control you. It whispers softly in your ear. And you obey like a trained dog, thinking you're making smart decisions. Today, you will understand how to stop being a puppet of your own fears and finally become the author of your own life. If you've ever been that man who swallows pride and calls it diplomacy, share in the comments, when was the most painful moment? And if you know someone who needs to stop fooling themselves about their own weakness, share this video now. They will understand later why you did it. Cowardice is a master of camouflage and psychological manipulation. It doesn't appear dressed in obvious fear, trembling at your door, asking to come in. It disguises itself as refined strategy, calculated patience, emotional maturity. You avoid difficult conversations and claim it's to preserve important relationships. You delay crucial decisions and call it detailed strategic planning. You stay in toxic situations that destroy you from within and call it loyalty, commitment, responsibility. You accept repeated disrespect and label it tolerance, greatness of spirit. But observe the devastating pattern that repeats. In all these situations, a decision is being made every second. And it's not you making that decision. It's fear. It infiltrated your mind, organized your schedule, edited your words before they even leave your mouth, limited your movements as if you were a prisoner on parole. You have become a full-time employee of your own cowardice. And the paycheck you receive is mediocrity disguised as peace, stagnation sold as stability. Cowardice stifles your growth because genuine development always demands real risk. It prevents you from earning genuine respect because true respect requires a clear assertion of boundaries. It keeps you from being authentic because authenticity inevitably breeds conflict. And you accept this cowardly bargain every day, trading your inner strength for temporary comfort, exchanging your authentic voice for safe, predictable silence, swapping your impactful presence for convenient invisibility. The result? A lifetime edited by fear, a personality entirely censored by your own weakness. Jean-Paul Sartre devised an utterly devastating concept for men like you: bad faith. It's when you deliberately deceive yourself about your fundamental freedom. It's when you consciously pretend you have no choice, when in reality you are constantly choosing every second with every breath. Bad faith is the premium fuel of modern cowardice. It sustains your illusion that you're a victim of circumstances. You say, "I can't leave this degrading job," when the harsh truth is, "I'm afraid to leave and face the uncertainty." You claim, "It's not the right time to confront this person," when what you should admit is, "I'm terrified to confront and discover I'm weaker than I think." You assert, "I'll wait for the situation to improve naturally," when reality is, "I'm petrified to act, to improve, to take full responsibility for the outcome." Sartre revealed that this elaborate internal lie is the most efficient and sophisticated prison in human experience. Because the jailer, the prisoner, and the architect of the prison are all the same person, you. You invent intricate narratives to justify your emotional paralysis, craft philosophically sophisticated theories about perfect timing, long-term strategy, and interpersonal diplomacy. But deep down, it's just intellectual cowardice, fear dressed in a tuxedo. The French philosopher was brutally direct. You are condemned to absolute freedom. This means you possess the full power to choose, even when you desperately prefer to pretend you have none. The existential anxiety you feel before tough decisions isn't a flaw in the system. It's a fundamental characteristic. It is concrete proof that you are entirely free. But cowardice programmed you to interpret anguish as a sign of imminent danger, when it should be seen as a signal of maximum opportunity. Malice systematically transforms your greatest strength into your greatest weakness, your absolute ability to choose your own destiny. Let me tell you about Daniel, a 29-year-old engineer in a 4-year relationship that should have ended at least 2 years ago. His girlfriend has treated him as an emotional doormat for so long that she no longer even hides it. She cancels plans at the last minute to go out with friends she finds more interesting. She blatantly flirts with other guys at parties, laughing when he shows discomfort. She publicly makes jokes about his lack of initiative in groups of friends, systematically humiliating him socially. Daniel knows perfectly well that he should react with dignity. He knows he should set clear, non-negotiable boundaries. He knows that he should, at the very least, have a serious and definitive conversation with her about basic respect. But every time his brain formulates the intention to act, cowardice immediately whispers the magic words that paralyze him. What if she leaves me? What if she replaces me with someone better? Better not risk losing what I have. So Daniel swallows his pride once more. He forces a smile, pretends everything is perfectly fine, and calls this daily humiliation mature love, a stable relationship. 6 months later, inevitably, she cheated on him with a coworker. When he found out and finally confronted her, she looked into his eyes and said with surgical coldness, "You never gave me a reason to respect you. I always knew you wouldn't react, no matter what I did." Daniel's cowardice didn't save the relationship as he had hoped. It completely destroyed it. It didn't shield him from pain as promised. It guaranteed that the pain would be absolutely maximum and devastating. Because when you are systematically manipulated by your own cowardice, the people around you notice immediately, and they start treating you exactly the way you treat yourself, with the least respect. Cowardice doesn't protect you from rejection you fear so much. It hands it to you on a silver platter, wrapped up as a gift directly to her. If any part of this story has made you reflect on your own choices and behaviors, mark that specific moment in the comments. That's exactly where real transformation begins to happen. And if this resonated so far, leave a like. Not for me, but for yourself, as a contract of honesty. The fundamental issue isn't that you feel fear. Every man feels fear, and anyone claiming otherwise is lying. The devastating truth is that you systematically allow fear to make critical strategic decisions on your behalf. When you avoid a difficult but necessary conversation, it is fear that is truly choosing the timing. When you indefinitely postpone a change you know you need to make, it is fear setting your schedule. When you passively accept situations that diminish you as a man, it is fear negotiating the terms of your existence. You have literally outsourced your life. Fear has become your invisible CEO, and you have become an obedient intern in your own life. It secretly dictates your schedule, selects your relationships, sets your artificial limits, and determines the scope of your ambitions. You simply carry out the orders it issues, naively believing you are making conscious, strategic choices. But strategy without genuine courage is merely sophisticated procrastination, intellectual paralysis. Cowardice subtly but systematically shapes your personality. Gradually, you stop expressing what you truly think to avoid minor conflicts. You stop actively pursuing what you genuinely desire to avoid potential failure. You cease being authentically yourself to evade social rejection. And at the end of this degenerative process, you become a completely diluted version of yourself, an identity entirely shaped by fear. A man who exists only in the safe intervals between the things he fears doing. Your relationships transform into stagnant comfort zones where no one grows or evolves. Your job becomes a gilded prison where no one challenges you or recognizes your potential. Your entire life turns into a predictable routine where absolutely nothing meaningful happens. And you desperately call this stability, maturity, or success. Now I will show you exactly what happens when a man consciously decides to confront his own cowardice head on. Roberto, 32 years old, accountant at a medium-sized family business, he had been working for 3 years in an environment where he was constantly disrespected by his boss, a man 10 years older who used humiliation as a tool of control, humiliating jokes during important meetings in front of clients, systematic overload of work with impossible deadlines, repeated promises of promotion and raises that never materialized. Roberto always swallowed it all silently, always forced to smile, always overlooked as if it were a Christian virtue, until the specific day he looked in the mirror and finally saw the truth. He wasn't being diplomatic or strategic, he was simply being cowardly. The next day he requested a private meeting with his boss. Without shouting, without emotional drama, but with an absolutely unwavering coldness, he said word for word, "Either you completely change how you treat me, or I leave this company. I have 3 concrete offers from other places. The decision is entirely yours." The boss tried to laugh nervously, tried to belittle, tried to intimidate with veiled threats. Roberto didn't even change his facial expression. He maintained the same neutral tone and simply repeated, "The decision is entirely yours." Exactly 2 weeks later, Roberto had a 40% raise and a position of genuine respect within the company, not because the boss magically became a better person, but because Roberto definitively stopped being manipulated by his own systematic cowardice. The fundamental difference between Daniel and Roberto wasn't a lack of fear. It was the conscious willingness to act strategically despite paralyzing fear. Roberto also felt genuine fear of being fired, of becoming unemployed, of facing direct conflict. But he understood something absolutely crucial that changed everything. The fear you consciously avoid today inevitably turns into the regret that consumes you tomorrow. Sartre clearly taught that facing one's own cowardice is literally the first authentic act of freedom. Because when you finally honestly admit that you are afraid, you automatically cease to be an unconscious slave to that fear. Genuine courage is not the fanciful absence of fear. It is the strategic decision to act consciously despite the presence of fear. It is to look directly into the internal terror and say with conviction, "Yes, I am genuinely afraid. Yes, this could go completely wrong, but I will not allow fear to dictate the course of my life." The truly free man, according to Sartrean philosophy, is the one who assumes total and unconditional responsibility for his own choices, including the courageous choice to acknowledge that he is afraid, including the strategic choice to act despite feeling paralyzing fear. When you finally cease pretending that you are fearless, you automatically stop using fear as a convenient excuse for inaction. It's no longer acceptable to hide behind, "It didn't work out," when in truth you never genuinely tried. It's no longer acceptable to convince yourself with, "I had no choice," when you consciously chose not to choose. The very moment you look fear directly in the eyes and declare with authority, "I see you clearly, but you no longer command me," everything in your existence fundamentally shifts. Your conversations become markedly more direct and honest. Your decisions become significantly swifter and more assertive. Your relationships become profoundly more authentic and respectful. Because you finally cease negotiating with your inner terrorist. You stop making diplomatic agreements with systemic weakness. You stop outsourcing your life to paralyzing fear, and you finally assume what has always been legitimately yours: complete and absolute mastery over your existential choices. The life you are systematically avoiding today out of irrational fear will inevitably transform into the regret that consumes you tomorrow. Every time you consciously choose the comfort zone over the growth zone, you are literally mortgaging your future to pay for the temporary and illusory security of the present. Sartre accurately demonstrated that all systematic cowardice bears a devastating existential cost: the gradual loss of one's authentic identity. Because when you always choose purely based on fear, you progressively lose sight of who you truly are beneath the social mask. You become a scattered collection of automated defensive reactions, a predictable set of emotional escape strategies, a man who exists only within the safe intervals between the things he systematically avoids doing. Your relationships inevitably become superficial because you have developed chronic fear of real intimacy and vulnerability. Your work remains permanently mediocre because you have cultivated paralyzing fear of standing out and taking on greater responsibilities. Your ambitions artificially diminish because you have nurtured irrational fear of failing big and publicly. And at the end of this degenerative trajectory, you build an entire life meticulously based on what you desperately do not want to happen, instead of courageously constructing your life around what you genuinely do want to happen. The ultimate result is a wholly defensive existence, eternally reactive, systematically diminished, a life entirely edited by fear. And when you inevitably reach your 50s, 60s, you'll look back with horror and realize you have lived entirely according to the life that fear chose for you, not the life you consciously decided for yourself. You will see that for decades, you have been a marionette controlled by your own cowardice. Now tell me honestly, are you going to continue being an obedient servant to your own cowardice, or have you finally understood that it's time to fire fear from the executive functions of your life? Write exactly these words in the comments: I fire fear. It's your official contract of existential freedom. And if you want to keep receiving truths that systematically pull you out of your mental comfort zone, subscribe to the channel now. Here, sophisticated self-deception doesn't survive even for a second, because Sartre has already revealed the ultimate truth that sets you free. Authentic freedom begins at the exact moment you accept that fear exists concretely, but that it no longer rules over you. Fear might still be present in your nervous system, but the strategic decisions are yours. It has always been you, and it will always be you.